The memory orchard. Dr. Evelyn Mara had spent her life chasing the architecture of the human mind. How memories rooted, how guilt spread, how time could prune and reshape what we chose to remember. Her creation, Neurobloom, was supposed to be a miracle, a therapy that allowed patients to walk through their memories as tangible landscapes. Trauma could be confronted, reshaped, healed, the mind made navigable. But there was always the question she avoided. What happens when the mind creates something it was never meant to remember? The day she decided to test it on herself, the lab felt unusually quiet. A storm pressed against the skylights, rain streaking the glass like veins. She settled into the neural cradle, electrodes glimmering like tiny stars around her temples. The machine hummed, and the world folded inward. When she opened her eyes, she was standing in an orchard. Rows upon rows of trees stretched into a pale horizon, their branches bending under the weight of translucent fruit that shimmered like glass hearts. Each fruit pulsed faintly, whispering in voices she could almost recognize: laughter, arguments, secrets half remembered. The air was thick with the perfume of nostalgia and decay. At first, she felt awe. This was her creation, a living map of the human soul. But as she wandered deeper, her awe curdled into unease. None of these trees belonged to the memory paths she'd mapped before. The soil was dark and wet, almost crimson, and carved into the bark of one tree she saw her own initials. Curiosity turned to dread. She reached for one of the fruits, and as her fingers brushed its surface, the world convulsed. The orchard dissolved into a memory she had never recalled. A young intern standing before her years ago, trembling, begging Evelyn not to falsify the data that would destroy their careers. Evelyn had smiled coldly and said, "Progress demands sacrifice." The memory fractured, returning her to the orchard. The fruit in her hand had turned black, its glow extinguished. She stumbled backward, panting, realizing the truth. These trees did not belong to patients. They were hers. Each one sprouted from a buried act of cruelty. Each fruit a memory she had pruned from her own mind to protect her legacy. She wandered on, her reflection flickering in the fruit's glassy skins. A scientist, a liar, a thief of minds. The trees whispered her name, soft as prayer, low as guilt. Then came the voice, calm, familiar, and impossibly close. "You planted us, Evelyn. You made us grow." She turned and saw herself. Another Evelyn, her face cracked like old porcelain, standing among the trees. The other smiled, not with warmth, but recognition. "You harvested their pain." The double said, "Now it's time to taste your own." The orchard shuddered. The trees bent inward, their roots tearing the soil open, wrapping around her feet, her waist, her throat. She screamed, and the world blinked out. When she woke in the lab, the air was sharp with the scent of burnt metal. The pulse monitor shrieked beside her, and her assistants burst in, their faces pale and voices distant. She sat up slowly. The neural display was still running. The orchard was alive. Its branches swayed despite the stillness of the lab, dripping with silver sap. Fragments of fruit hung suspended in midair, pulsing faintly like breathing hearts. But at the orchard's center now stood a new tree, one taller than the rest, its bark black glass threaded with veins of light. Across its trunk was carved her name, Evelyn Mara. The letters pulsed softly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. The assistants froze as the branches began to unfurl, each bearing fruit shaped like eyes, their lids fluttering open one by one. A low hum filled the lab, a sound too human to be mechanical. Evelyn felt something deep in her chest tighten, as if the roots of that tree were now coiling around her ribs. Dr. Mara, one of the assistants, whispered, "Is it over?" Evelyn couldn't answer. On the screen, the new tree tilted slightly, as though listening. From somewhere within the static came a whisper, her own voice, layered and broken. "Truth takes root, and it always grows back." The monitor flickered once, then went black. Silence. Evelyn closed her eyes. But even in the darkness, she could smell the orchard damp soil, rotting fruit, and the faint sweetness of something blooming again beneath the surface. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest and felt a small, hard bump under her skin, round as a seed. And beneath the steady hum of machines, she swore she heard it, the faintest rustle of leaves growing louder.